Hello there, my name is Sean Dillman. Welcome to this presentation, Microsoft Office for Law School and Beyond, Part 1. This is a version of a presentation that I recently gave to the University of Toronto Faculty of Law as part of their Leadership Skills program, and about 100 people were there, including first-year students, second-year students, third-year students, grad students, and pre-law students. And it went really well, and I received a great testimonial from the director of the Future of Law Lab. So I wanted to make this as a free YouTube video so that more people could see it and benefit from it. So if you find that you like this video, please click the button and subscribe to my channel right now. So before I begin, I just want to make a few comments to help you get the most out of this presentation. First, this presentation contains slides and screen sharing only. So you won't be seeing me on the video because although I'm happy to share my face with you, the purpose of this presentation is to walk you through specific steps and show you how to use specific Microsoft Office applications so that you can get the most out of them and the features that we'll be looking at. And showing my face doesn't really help with that, it only kind of detracts. So on that note, I will be showing you a lot of different screens that are in the various Microsoft Office programs so that it's a really practical demonstration for you and a practical walkthrough. So please ensure that on your side you've clicked the button to make this presentation appear full screen on your monitor. And on my side, I've increased the size of the software as much as possible, but I can only make it so big. So please make sure that you're in full screen mode so that you can see all of the little details. Regarding the presentation materials, everything that you'll be seeing are things that you have access to. If you'd like a copy of the slides that are used in this presentation, you can get them through my website, seandillman.com. And there are a lot of them, like a lot of slides, but I wanted to make sure that you have all the materials that you need to put the lessons of this video into place on your own time, either during the presentation or after the presentation. And I want you to be able to do everything that I'm doing. So I made a very detailed presentation, a bunch of slides, so that you can follow it step by step. Okay, so with that, here's some information about me. Basically, in a nutshell, I was called to the Bar of British Columbia in 2016. And before entering the world of law, I studied computer engineering technology and worked as a web developer and a technician at IBM. Throughout my legal career, I've practiced as a barrister and a solicitor, and in 2018 I opened a firm with a partner where I continued my practice and was a co-managing partner. And now I focus my attention on leadership and development, and as the middle bullet says, I think that I'm kind of the perfect person to be presenting to you on this subject because I'm an experienced lawyer, but I still remember law school quite well. So really quickly, the target audience of this webinar is basically any student with any level of computer knowledge. Whether you think that you have strong computer skills or not so strong computer skills, I'm confident that you'll learn some things that will give you a boost. And as for the structure, this is a two-part video series because there's just so much information to cover. I thought that it would be best if I broke it up into two videos. So in part one, we're going to cover OneDrive because it's a really important application. It's where the data that you'll be creating will be stored. And we'll also be covering Word because that's the application that you'll be using the most at law school, for drafting essays and making outlines and all of that stuff. And then in part two, we're going to cover Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Outlook because I think that these are applications that you'll probably use a little less at law school, but more after you graduate, especially Outlook. However, these applications are still useful at law school, and I have lots of specific law school-based examples to share with you. So the format and the scope, I'll be talking about things on the micro and macro level. So what I mean by that is on the micro level, I'll be showing you specific steps for how to do things and explaining why you should be doing them. And then on the macro level, I'll be discussing higher level concepts that I may not necessarily show you every step, but I'll be giving you the slides and allowing you to review that in the future if you determine that you could put this stuff into use. And if you also just want to return to my YouTube channel for specific walkthroughs on specific things, that may also be a good way to do it. For example, there's going to be a section on Outlook, and there's lots of features that I'll be telling you about, but I also did already make walkthrough videos about these things on YouTube. So if you want to check out those videos, that would be the easiest way to do it. And I am fairly active with my YouTube channel and constantly making targeted materials to show people how to do things in practice. So beyond showing you specific walkthroughs, one of my goals is to introduce you to as many features as possible that I think that you can use so that you know that they exist. And even if now isn't the right time for you to use the tool, you may remember them in the future, and then you can come back to this video and take a look. Okay, so one last word about Microsoft Office 365 in general before we get started. Obviously, I would disclose if I was working for Microsoft. I'm not. I am, however, a big fan of Microsoft, and I've been using their software since I was a kid. There are competitors to Microsoft like OpenOffice, as well as the suites offered by Google and Apple. But in my opinion, the Microsoft package is just unbeatable in terms of what it provides and how much it costs. For about $10 or $20 a month, depending on the package, you get a terabyte or more of cloud storage, as well as access to all of the software that we'll be discussing: OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Outlook. I should note that I won't be talking about SharePoint, Teams, or Skype because I don't think that these are as useful for students. And I'll also be covering using Picture Manager as a bonus subject. Long story short, it's really just a program for looking at pictures, and you can make small edits, but it is something that Microsoft has kind of discontinued and they don't service it anymore, but it's actually a really good piece of software. Okay, so with that, let's get to it. Part 1, OneDrive and Word. So to start, we're going to look at OneDrive. All of the stuff on the left is what we're going to be talking about, like real stuff, like how to sync your data, how to share your data, password protect your data, limit access, have remote access, and choose your data region, which is kind of more important for private practice than for students. But again, part of the presentation is to talk about both kinds of things that you can use at law school, things that you can use beyond law school. So this is going to be a micro walkthrough. We're literally going to start with an empty folder just in Windows. You go down into the corner there once you've got OneDrive installed, and I'm not going to walk you through the installation of OneDrive and everything. I'm assuming that you've got it going on, but if you don't, you can let me know and I could walk you through it, but it's pretty simple to install. So once you've got OneDrive kind of working, this is the main interface that you're going to see, which essentially tells you when your files have synced or if you've deleted things. That's essentially all you see here, which is very simple, and it's good that it's simple. There's a button on the bottom left that says open folder. If you open that, it takes you to the root of where your OneDrive data is being stored. If you click on the view online button, this actually opens it in a web browser. The thing that's great about this is it actually really shows you that this is online. Like, this is synced to the cloud. This is not just on your local hard drive. You can access this from anywhere on any device. You know, you can access it on your PC, and then if you've got laptops, you can access it there too. If you've got a smartphone, you access it on your smartphone. So, but the cool thing about this is, you know, you really can, in a lot of ways, you know, work from anywhere. As students, you're likely aware that, of course, you can do your work from anywhere. You can study at school, in the library, you can go and work in a coffee shop, you can do that. But in legal practice, in a lot of ways, you can actually do the same thing. Of course, a person needs to always be concerned with maintaining client confidentiality. You know, if you're in a coffee shop, you want to make sure that you don't have client files out, you know, that passersby could see and could read stuff off what you're doing. You want to make sure people aren't seeing your screen. You really want to make sure that your internet connection is as secure as possible. That's a bit of a different subject for another day, but that's an important element. But, you know, assuming that you've got everything in place and assuming that you're on side with cybersecurity, you can really practice the law from just about anywhere. There's a lot of stuff that clients will need to do physically, or you will need to see them physically to confirm their identity, or to take their signatures on things, or to take payment, or you know, just to have good relations with your clients and kind of keep that FaceTime up. But there is so much that you can do remotely now. It's really quite an incredible thing, and there's actually quite a movement out there in the legal community. There's Facebook groups that are actually dedicated to lawyers who want to know the best techniques and tips possible for working remotely. So the more that you start working with these tools now, these Microsoft Office tools, the more you'll be able to do that in the future. And if you happen to work at a firm or work with a lawyer who works remotely, you know, you'll kind of be ahead of the game ideally in a lot of ways, where you'll understand about cloud computing and sharing files and you know, using common documents and things like that. So I just wanted to make those points before I continued. This slide, this is actually a website which shows you on the Microsoft website where the geographies are, like where the actual data is literally being stored. And the reason that's important is because in my jurisdiction anyway, the Law Society cares about where the actual physical servers are located and where the data is being stored. They don't necessarily want the data, my client files, to be transferred out of my jurisdiction into another jurisdiction for storage and then to be going back and forth. Essentially, I believe that they consider that to be kind of a problem with maintaining the integrity of the data and an issue with me keeping up my duty of confidentiality to my clients. So the great thing about using this Microsoft solution is you can actually select physically which servers are going to be storing your data. So for example, if you're practicing in Canada, you can see that there's these options here where you can choose, what city in Canada will be keeping my data. You can choose from Toronto or Quebec City. So yeah, if there's an issue with regulation and making sure you know where your data is, you're covered with this with Microsoft. Okay, so jumping back kind of into the specific details. So the help and settings button, you click on that. Typically, I don't even change the default settings. I find that this software works so well that it barely needs any kind of alteration or modification. I typically go in and I pause syncing sometimes because sometimes it kind of messes up or it stalls or there's a problem. So sometimes I have to go in there, I have to pause syncing and then start it again to make it go. Other than that, it generally works extremely well. Okay, so now I'll just do a really quick demo. So we're in an empty folder. You just right click on some space. You're going to click on new. We're going to make a new folder. When you make a new folder, you hit enter. And then as soon as you make it, even though we haven't given it a name, there's a status. There's these little blue arrows that are rotating. And those little blue arrows mean that it's in the process of syncing. So after a few moments, it turns into a green check mark. With a new folder that's probably, like a couple bytes or kilobytes in size, it's going to do that really quickly. If you if you upload like a movie file that's like 4 gigs, in size, or 20 gigs or something, obviously it's going to take a lot longer. It's going to depend on your upload speed and all of that stuff. But generally speaking, it's really quick with, law school notes or practice files. So now I'm just renaming the folder to something practical, shared contract notes. I actually had a folder in law school called shared contract notes, and my friends that were in contracts law with me, we shared our outlines, we shared data, we shared images, right? It was very useful when it came around time to study for finals. So, okay, so on the demo, this change has synced, and you right click the folder. And this is so now that the folder is synced, it's on the cloud, we have access to it, and that's great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually share it with somebody. So you right click on the folder, you click on share, and it's going to bring up this interface. So in this interface, you can click here to change the link settings. It's typically the first thing that I do, just to make sure that it's set the way that I want it. Typically it allows editing, which means that anybody with the shared link can go into the folder and change things, delete things, edit things. But if you want, there's lots of flexibility. You can unclick that. You just hover the checkbox and you click that. So now the person with this link is not going to be able to edit. I also typically set an expiration date. As a general practice, I pick the last day of the year whenever I share something. And then I confirm the date. And the reason I do that is just kind of a way, it's kind of a mentality of not having loose ends. That if I share a folder with somebody, I try to restrict access just so that I know that, they're not just doing whatever they want with it, or they're not uploading files later or whatever, right? It's just kind of a way of maintaining good housekeeping with respect to, shared folders. Password, again, as far as kind of a hygiene approach, you need to use a strong password. Please don't just use, ABC123, and then don't send the password with the link. Typically what I do is if I give somebody a link, I'll try to give them the password in another way, like through a text message or through a phone call or some other way. The reason for that, of course, is that if a hacker gets an email that you've sent to somebody that says, here's the folder and here's the password, well, they've got both of the things in the exact same place, right? So it's just kind of a mentality thing to try to keep that stuff separated. And thinking beyond law school to legal practice, it's very important to protect client data. You do not want to have a data breach. You want to keep your clients happy. I'm assuming this is a happy face. You want your clients to be happy. You want the law society to not be giving you any trouble for having breaches. So something to keep in mind. Okay, so we're going to click apply now that we've done all of those settings. This little box actually confirms to us that anyone with the link is going to be able to view, and the little calendar icon means that it's got an expiration date, and the little lock means that there's a password protection on it. So you add an email recipient. I just added law school classmate at waythorn.com. It gives you a warning. It says they're not in your organization. I actually don't even know why it would give me this warning. Of course, they would be in my organization. I always ignore that. And then here you can actually change the settings again, even on the outside of the interface. So we're going to go here. We're actually going to allow editing, because if we're sharing our contract notes with a classmate, of course we want them to edit. So we click that button. We click Can Edit. and it gives us a little confirmation thing. It says now they can edit. Great. You can add a message here if you want. That's optional. I never do that. But you could say something like, hey, hi, here's the link for the shared contracts note. And it would send that through your probably Outlook, that little icon that says Outlook that's to the left of send. In other words, hi there. I assume that it's going to send it through Outlook. I don't really know because I never do that. I always click on copy link. And the reason I always click on copy link is because it's more versatile and I'm more in control. So when you click on copy link, it actually opens a sub window like this. It says link copy to clipboard. Great. So then what I can do is I can go to my email application, whatever that is, Outlook, Gmail, Yahoo, iCloud, whatever esoteric email from the past is still out there. You can paste your link into the message. Actually, and this is an interesting thing, it gives us a little warning message. It says we couldn't verify that the recipients can access this link. It's saying that because we put a password on it. So I think essentially what it's telling us is it doesn't know that the person can get through, but it doesn't know that we put a password on it. So just to show you the difference, I'm going to go back to the link settings. I'm going to take the password off. So I'm just going to click where it says set password, clear the area, just no password. I'm going to click apply. And then it's going to give me a new link, a whole new link, different than the previous one. Copy this new link. We're going to go back into the email application. Now we're going to paste this link, and we're not going to get an error message. And in fact, it's going to auto shorten to like a descriptive thing, which says shared contract notes, because now it can go through and it can read that link and there's no password. Another reason that I always just copy the link is this is a screenshot of my Facebook. I can just send it through Facebook, right? I can send it through a message to somebody in here. And I'll be showing you coming up, there it is, just pasting it in. And I'll be showing you that you can do the same thing on your smartphone. So this slide, to kind of summarize this little section, is, why does it matter? Well, because if you're sharing information with your friends and your colleagues and your classmates, you can actually work on it together, and it is so much easier and so much faster and so much better than, giving each other data on like a thumb drive or, whatever other ways people would share data. So we'll look at the OneDrive Smartphone App really quickly. Click here where it says Microsoft Apps. They all actually work pretty well in my view. Has a really simple interface, and it works best on Wi-Fi, of course. Watch out for that. You don't want to be downloading a bunch of data on your cell data and racking up your bill. So you click on the hamburger icon, like if we're going to share this folder. Again, gives us all these options. You click on share, click on copy link. It works just like on the desktop. It says link copied, and then we can put that in a text message. You can send it to whoever you want. Here's WhatsApp. You can send it by WhatsApp, of course. Makes it really easy. And then you can actually do scans right from your smartphone, which is kind of cool. You can scan a whiteboard. It's got a dedicated setting for that. So if you're in class and the professor is giving a bunch of notes, you can take a picture. It tries to optimize as best as it can. And then you save that file and it'll be uploaded. It's usually pretty quick with these scans. So it says scan uploaded, and then I'll just show you the few different scan settings. You can also do a document scan. Generally speaking, I would suggest that you scan a document with a document scanner. I actually have a video on YouTube about the Fujitsu IX 1600. It's an awesome scanner. It's maybe one of the best out there. So if you're interested in that. But in a pinch, if you just have your smartphone and you're at the library, great, take a picture of the paper. I have tons of pictures of books from law school, still on my smartphone that I took. Business cards, similar thing, very handy. It kind of tries to optimize it so that it fixes the angle and the skew and everything. The thing about business cards for networking purposes, I have been in the shoes of this gentleman where I have went, who is that person I met at that thing? And they work in an office, right? It's like, nice job. Way to narrow that down. Like, what was it? Like Blake's, McCarthy Tetro, Galloway's, BLG? Like, what? I don't know. But if you have your cards, at least you can kind of flip through and be like, that person, that's the person I was looking for. So it is really good to keep cards organized. When I was at law school, I went to events and oh my gosh, I'd leave with just piles of business cards, right? So it's helpful to keep that in mind. And coming up in this presentation, I'll actually be showing you how to use a mail merge so that what you can do is you can put all of the information from your business cards in an Excel spreadsheet as you go along. And then you may actually be able to use them for something really helpful in the future, like if you need to send out a bunch of emails saying thank you or things like that. So hold on for that. That's coming up. Lastly, you can do a photo scan. This is actually my aunt and uncle from back when they got married. It's a nice picture. Cautionary tale. This is. I'll finish with this. So when I was in law school, I literally had my laptop fall off a desk and smash, and it was just an accident that happened. And I tried to fix it, and I couldn't. The hard drive was toast, and I lost a couple weeks of work because I was actually just backing my data up on hard drives. I call myself a computer guy, but I wasn't using OneNote at the time to back up my notes. I don't know why. I just wasn't. I could have been using, an Apple's version. I could have been using Google's. I could have been using Dropbox. I wasn't. So it sucked. I drew an unhappy face in the dust on this laptop because I've never used it since. It cratered. I tried to fix it. It wasn't worth it. So please learn from my example. Use this product if you're not using it. Keep your data uploaded. Keep it secure, because at the end of the day, I've got these images of this old style media. CDs, card readers, a floppy disk down there, external hard drive. You don't even need to use this media anymore. Like, you don't even have to use another physical thing. It's all just on the cloud. So there's no excuse. And in private practice, if you were to lose your client data because your laptop fell and broke, that would be hard to explain, right? Like, I guess that would be the explanation. It fell, it broke, I lost the data. I'm sorry. What's happened has happened. But I wouldn't envy anybody in that situation, because naturally the question would come like, weren't you backing up? Like, didn't you have it saved on the cloud? So, anyway, so that was quite walkthrough focused. I'm gonna do some stuff now on Word that is a little broader. So, hold on to your hats. Okay, so getting into Word, as I mentioned, this is going to be a little bit more kind of macro than micro. We're going to look at basic formatting, advanced formatting in legal practice. Custom fields is important. Mail merge is a useful thing, and text to speech. I use it every day. If you don't know what it is, I look forward to telling you about it. I use it all the time, constantly. Okay, so to start, this is a basic academic paper. I'm sure that you've all written things like this. This is a paper that I actually wrote for my communications law course that I took at law school. This is the real McCoy. So it's kind of got standard stuff that you've seen, 12-point font, Times New Roman or Arial, nothing fancy. This is just, it's a paper, it's for grades, don't use, Calibri or anything fun. 2-time spacing, left-hand justified, that's it, right? And then you're going to have a style guide that you're used. In Canada, we're using the McGill guide. When I was an undergrad, I think I used MLA, not Chicago, but anyway, there's style guides out there. So we're not going to get into that. But yeah, and again, like with formatting, it only gets so fancy, right? With an academic paper, 1-inch margins, you'll do some bolding, underlining, you'll center things, footnotes, of course, you'll italicize some things, and you'll tab your paragraphs. That's about it for the most part, right? For the most part, that's your standard stuff. So when you get into legal practice, this is actually more complex than it looks. So this is a anonymized letter that I've used in legal practice. Notice where it says without prejudice. That's a side thing completely, but basically in legal practice, it's important sometimes when you send a letter, when you're trying to settle something, it's very important that you say without prejudice. I'll leave you to look that up for yourselves if you're not sure about that. So this document actually has more advanced things going on. For example, like the firm name and the logo here at the top, that's actually in the header of the document, right? Which I'm sure you know about headers, but that's where that's living. This font is not a standard font. This is a custom font called Palantino Linotype. Firms like to use their own fonts so they can, stand out or look impressive or look, sophisticated or whatever, right? To the right of that, so that's actually, there's a table that's there, and the reason that I can tell there's a table is because if you actually look in the top right corner, it says table design and layout. It's kind of hard to tell, but those words wouldn't be there if there wasn't a table, and the table actually just has its borders turned off, and the reason that it has that done is so that text copied by email to opposing party at waythorn.com, that is right justified, and then the stuff on the other side, 123 street name, blah blah blah, that stuff is left justified. And then you notice we actually also have mixed spacing, right? That stuff is clearly like a 1-point spacing, but then we also have 2-time spacing between the date and the attention and all of that. And at the bottom, the re line, when you're saying, this is what this letter is about, that's a paragraph border. So the way to access that If you look on the previous slide, right above the word paragraph, right above the P, there's kind of a little grayed out icon with an underline. That's how you access that. But excuse me for not showing you exactly how to do that. As I mentioned, we're kind of into a bit of a macro explanation right now, where I'm just kind of showing you the bigger picture of using Microsoft Word for law school and legal practice. But I will be having a future program on using Microsoft Word for law school. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out in the future. So to go back to the table thing, like I said, because those words were highlighted in the top corner or kind of active, I could tell that there's a table. And then when I click on the table layout button, on the left, number 2 over there, it says view grid lines. So when you turn on the grid lines, then it gives you these kind of not real lines, if you know what I mean. Like they're not actually going to appear on the document, but they show you the lines so that you know where the table is. So I turned that on just so that you can tell what was actually going on in reality. Looking at the bottom of the page, body text in legal writing is generally justified, meaning you justify it to the paragraph. You don't do left justify or right or center, of course not, but you try to justify it so that it has that nice look where it's flush on both sides of the margins. ENCL, there's all kinds of funny things that lawyers put at the bottom of letters. That's kind of a side issue, but enclosed means there's documents that are enclosed. Or if you're doing real estate conveyancing, you write like E&O, it means like errors and omissions are excluded and stuff like that. This document also has a footer. Most legal writing does, or letters of this nature. And again, with the footer, there's this table design. So yeah, I'm just showing you what's in this table. So that's a 3 column table, so that you can put your address here, put your phone number and fax in the middle, put your email and your website on the side. There's lots of different ways to do it, but I'm just showing you some options. This is a really important button. This is something that I actually only learned about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I've seen it a million times, I just never used it. So there's this little button it's like a P that's facing the wrong direction, or the reverse direction, and it says show paragraph marks and other hidden formatting symbols. If you're not aware of this button, click it sometime. Like click it the next time you go into Word, because basically what it does is it shows you all of these funny little marks all over your document, which shows you kind of the hidden, like the Neo in the Matrix, if you will. Like what's going on in the background. Like if you look below, it's got those reverse P's. That shows you that there's like a break, that like that's where the new line is going to be. And then if you look at the end of firm name LLP, that's also kind of a return. Anyway, I won't get into the detail of what they mean exactly, like what each little symbol means, but this is a really useful feature to toggle, because it doesn't alter your document or anything, but it shows you things so that you can get a deeper sense of what's actually happening from a formatting perspective. So just to jump into something that's a bit of a different flavor. So this is a law school outline for the pre-law or maybe even the 1L students, probably not, but mostly for the undergrad students. This is what an outline generally looks like at law school. And generally we are able to take these into final exams, and generally we're able to use these to write the exam, which is a foreign concept for some people, because in a lot of fields, you go into the exam with nothing, right? Just your brain or a pen or a calculator, and that's it, right? But at law school, we make these elaborate outlines. It's got everything about the course in it. So the reason I'm showing you an outline is to kind of parlay into a slightly different feature. So this has narrow margins. This is like a 0.5 inch margin as opposed to a standard 1 inch. And then we've got tables of content. That's the document on the left, which is auto-generated through Word. And then on the right-hand side, we've got headings. So where it says Dreger's Modern Principle and then A dot entire context. So those are headings. So the way that you set that up is here. So you click on the layout button. On the left-hand side, it's margins. So that's how you set your margins. You've probably seen that before, changing your margins. And then as far as headings goes, you click, basically at home, number 1, and then there's a little button that has your headings, and then you can change your heading. And then number 3 on the left there, it's going to show you in the heading section how that's affected your line of text, basically. So if something's heading 1, it's going to be top level, right? Dreger's Modern Principle. Heading number 2 is going to be entire context. That's the next one down, so that you can kind of start tiering and organizing your information. So we're going to get into that in a little bit more detail. So just hold on about these headings. But essentially, once everything's in place and you want to auto-generate a table of contents, you click on references. Then number two, you click on table of contents, and then bang, it just comes into the document. You can format it from there, and you can do different things to it. But it's an amazing concept, or it's an amazing tool, the table of contents. So now I'm going to show you something that's a little bit more advanced. So in legal practice, this document that we're going to be using is company articles. So basically the constating document that tells you all of the rules about the corporation and the company, and how it works with holding shares, and shotgun clause, and who are not who are the shareholders, but the rules that everybody has to comply to, and all of that stuff. It's a fairly lengthy document, a fairly standard legal document when you incorporate a company. So this is, because it's such a long document, the table of contents is also ridiculously long. So the table of contents is here, and note the page numbers. And if you note, there's actually a green circle with nothing in it. That's by design, because essentially that's the first page, and that page is different than the page 2, page 3, and page 4, because just for aesthetic purposes, we're not putting a page number there, just so it looks nice and clean. But then page 2, 3, and 4, and continuing, use Roman numerals. So this is section 1 of the document. Section 2 is the actual articles itself, like the actual information. Part 1, interpretation. Part 2, shares and share certificates. So if you see the big wide green circle there, so we've got that little P button has been clicked so that we can see the formatting. So that's where the section break happens, which means that everything that's before that is section 1. Everything that's after that is section 2. And then that means that we can format it differently. So instead of it continuing on with the Roman numerals, because what we would be at, I don't even know what Roman numeral we'd be at by now, but we'd be at, 15 or 16 or however many previous pages there are, we're going to start again. We're going to start at 0. We're going to start at 1, 2. So again, the first page of section 2 has nothing in the top right corner. For aesthetic purposes, we're just going to leave off page 1. But if you look here at the bottom right circle, you'll see it says page 2. We want to start the numbering like that. So just to make it clearer, I also produced this image. So the red that we're seeing here, that's section 1, right? And where that page break happens, everything after that, that's all section 2, right? So it's just kind of easier to conceptualize. And maybe you've had to do this on, I don't know, I did this at college. I remember I had some kind of a computer-based presentation or essay or something that I had to write, and it had to have all of these different parts in it with different page numbering for each part. And instead of making them as separate documents, I wanted it to be just one document. So that's where sections come in, and they can be a little tricky to work with sometimes, but it's an extremely powerful tool, and I'll be actually showing you more about what that power entails, which is actually right now. So in legal practice, there is something very magical that a person can do by using sections and custom fields kind of together conceptually. So these documents, this is just a folder with 14 documents in it. These documents have actually been provided to me by a client who I help with her computing needs. She's a lawyer in Toronto. So these are documents to incorporate a company in Ontario. Great. There's 14 of them. The problem with this is by having 14 different documents, if she wants to incorporate a company called ABC123 Corp, she has to go into every single document and change the company name from, star, 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 or blank, or whatever. She needs to change it to company name, she needs to change it to ABC123 Corp. Not great. Not if she's going to have a long career, many decades long, and do this all the time. So here's a different view. Here's the actual documents, what they look like, kind of just the first page of each. There's all these documents. The yellow highlighting that you see, that is the company name. That is going to be you're going to need to change it, right? So this diagram, or this little image, there is a superpower in Word that they kind of underplay. So if you have a new document open and you click on headings, there's nothing in the document yet. That Word has this little blurb where it says, create an interactive outline of your document. It's a great way to keep track of where you are or quickly move your content around. That is an understatement because the power that you've got here is incredible. So I'm going to show you that to try to convince you of the power. So this document, I kind of, I don't know, I didn't coin the phrase, but I call it an omni-form because it's like one form with all of the documents in it. So as opposed to the previous diagram that the previous image that we saw with 14 different Word documents in one folder, this is 14 different Word documents or documents in one Word document. And the difference is huge because by having all of those documents in one document, we can do things to the contents and it'll all happen in one document. So what do I mean by that? Here's a company name. There are actually 21 instances of company name throughout these 14 documents that needs to be changed. So instead of opening and closing 14 documents, we can do it all in one place. Now, what we could do is we could do a find and replace. Control H, I believe, is the shortcut key. And you've probably done a find and replace in a document before. We're not going to do that. We're going to do something better than that because keep in mind, this is a document that a person is going to be using over many years of legal practice. Name. There's 56 instances of name. So the person who's going to be incorporating the company, they need to sign their name like 56 places, or maybe they don't have to sign 56 places, but they are going to be referenced 56 times. So we need that to be changed. So what are we going to do? So go in the top left corner, click on File, click on Info. We're going to click on Properties, Advanced Properties. It says Advanced, but it's not too crazy stuff. Click on Custom, and I've already set this document up. I'll show you how to do it, but I've already set it up with custom fields, which is done actually from this interface. So we click down where it says company name under properties, and we change the value to ABC123 Corp. So we click modify, and it's been changed. Now we're going to click on name one. We're going to change the name of that person that I just mentioned. We're going to change that person's name to Daffy Duck. So we're going to do the same thing. Daffy Duck, change or modify. And there you go. The values have been changed. ABC123 Corp, Daffy Duck. Okay. So we click on OK. This is great. So we're going to go back to the document. So you see the green is company name and the yellow is name one. That's fine. Keep in mind that those are throughout the document, all over the place, right? So we're going to Control A, select all the text in the document. We're going to press F9, and that's going to update all of the information, which it just did. So voila. Daffy Duck has been, or name one has been replaced with Daffy Duck. ABC123 Corp has replaced the blank company name, and like boom, we're good to go. How long would it have taken to do that by opening and closing 14 documents versus doing it this way? I've done the math my own way. I'll leave it to you to decide. I think it's about 6 times faster by my estimation. And if you think about it, there's all these other fields that we could change too. Date is going to be needed you're going to need to update the date, number of shares, class of shares, registered office, records office, president name, secretary name, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I actually use this for estate and incapacity planning as well, which was extremely powerful because if you're doing a will for somebody, they usually want you to do their power of attorney too. So instead of having a document that said, Daffy Duck will, power of attorney, healthcare, Daffy Duck, power of attorney, legal, I just had them as one document. So when I changed the name of Daffy Duck in one place, it changed everywhere. When I changed the name of his executor, that's also probably the person he wanted to be his attorney, so on and so forth, right? So huge time savings, huge time savings. And if you're working with the right kind of firm that could actually make use of something like this, there's actually a really big opportunity for you to wow the lawyers that you're working for and say like, hey, look, here's your standard precedent and here's how you're doing it. But if you do it this other way, it's much faster. And oh, by the way, I already set it up for you and here you go. So think about it, keep it in your back pocket. If you already have a job lined up or you'll be working at a firm and you think that this may work for them, this may be something that you want to show to them because, time is money in legal practice. If something takes an hour to do and you can do it in 5 minutes, well, that's some power, right? You've just saved 55 minutes that you could do something else. So as far as how to add these fields, it's actually really easy. So we just go back into info, you go to properties, you just type in what you want the field to be. So we're going to add president. So in name, we add president. We click on, we put president, and we'll start it off with a value. So we'll say Mickey Mouse is going to be the value in president. And then we click on add. And that's it. It's easy, right? The other trick though now, and you can delete in the same place. But anyway, so now we've added Mickey Mouse, right? The thing is, we're going to have to go now and add that field into the document in the right places. So there is some initial setup work that a person has to do, but it's not that hard either, right? You go to insert field, and you make sure that your cursor is on the place where you're going to want it to go. It's under quick parts, pardon me. And then it's going to bring up this window. You scroll down to doc property, and then under properties, number 2 there, you find president, and then you click OK. And then when you do that, it's going to import that field into the slot where it says president. So if you're going to be incorporating companies all the time, like let's say, I don't know, let's say you had a really smoking practice and you incorporated a company a day, that would be incredible. That would be very, very good. But if you were doing that, it would take you like minutes to draft these documents as opposed to like a half hour or an hour or whatever. And some person may say, well, what difference does it make? You can get your staff to do it or something. Well, you want to save their time too, right? It's valuable. It's if you have to pay a legal assistant to do it for an hour, that's not as good either, right? So it's a little bit of heavy lifting at the beginning to set the document up, but once it's set up, it's incredible. Okay, so continuing on. So mail merge, similar concept. I don't know if you've heard of a mail merge, but essentially what you do is you can send one message or you can make one letter for lots of different people. So I'll show you what it is. It's easier to just tell you what it is. So law school example. You were at law school, you've just attended OCIs or something. Let's say you went and met with, I don't know, 10 people is what I chose here. When I did OCIs out here on the West Coast, I did Vancouver OCIs and Calgary OCIs. So I actually met lots of different people. So I had a pretty long list of people. It's kind of hard to see. I'll show you more zoomed up, but I wrote my little message, good afternoon, title, last name. Thank you for interviewing me recently for a position with name of firm. It was a pleasure meeting you. Please let me know if there's any additional information that I can provide, blah, 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 blah. If you wanted, you can go and send individually. You can type a new email and send it, or you can copy and paste that into a new email, get a little smarter, do it faster. Watch out that you don't put the wrong data or keep the wrong name. I did that once. I think that the person's name was actually Zane, but I had mistakenly written Kane with a K. If I was doing it this way, I probably wouldn't have done that because I probably would have seen their name next to the email address, and I would have been doing a little bit more work with the data. It was just a data entry error, so those can be hard to avoid sometime. But if I would have done it this way, I actually probably would have caught it, and I probably wouldn't have been as embarrassed and had to send that secondary email that I sent where I said, hey, sorry, I got your name wrong in the previous email. That was kind of embarrassing. So using a mail merge, there's actually one of the benefits of using a mail merge is if you make an Excel spreadsheet like this where you're tracking this information anyways, like what date did I interview, what was the firm, what's the full name of the person that interviewed me, what's their last name, what's their title, Mr. Ms., what's their email address. It creates a good record for you, but you can also leverage that. You can squeeze the lemon, you can get more out of it. So what do I mean by that? Okay. So in a Word document, and this is kind of weird because it's essentially using Excel, Word, and Outlook like in tandem. You kind of have to use it all three together, but we have those products, we have the technology, so it's all good. At the top, there's a button that says mailing. Click on mailing, and then it says select recipients. Click on that, and then number 3, click on use an existing list. Assuming that we've already set up the document, which I'll show you that. So we're going to select the spreadsheet that I just showed you. We're going to select that, and then we're going to click sheet 1. That's going to be the sheet that we're going to pull from, of course. And we've already set up our document. That text that I showed you at the bottom, we put it into this document. Good afternoon, title, last name, comma. Thank you for interviewing me recently for position with firm. And if you're not sure how to get that data in there, I left that out, but I can show that to you. Just let me know. It's basically you click there where it says insert merge field, and then you pick the field that you want to be there, and then you just put it where it needs to go. So it's not a tricky thing. I guess that's why I didn't include it. So then you click on preview results, and voila. Instead of it saying good afternoon, title, last name, comma, thank you for interviewing me recently for a firm with firm, or firm name, whatever it says, good afternoon, Mr. Kelly. Thank you for interviewing me recently for a position with Ferguson Kelly Bird LLP. And in this one document, similar to the Omniform thing, in this one document, you have these 10 different emails to these 10 different people in one place. You don't have to go into separate emails, separate Word files, separate anything. It's just in this one document. pulling the data out of your Excel file. Super, super useful, and it replaces the text. So then what you do is you go to send email messages, finish and merge, send email messages. Then it says merge to email, add subject line. So thank you from Sean Dillman. You make sure to put a subject line in there. Mail format, sometimes I change it to be text only. The reason I do that is because I think that there's spam filters out there that are a little bit more sensitive when it comes to getting unsolicited email. And if it comes in an HTML format, it may block that more than if you just send a text only version. A text only version may just be kind of less attractive because it's just the text only. But if it means that the email will go through, then that's a better thing. However, I suppose if you're emailing from your university email address, you should have no problem. It should go through, so that should be fine. Send records, that says all. So basically that means records 1 to 10, or I'm just letting it send all of them. All of the records, Mr. Kelly's number 1, Ms. Jones is number 2, whatever. I want them all sent, right? So then click on send. When you click send, you are literally sending out 10 messages or however many messages, virtually instantaneously to a bunch of people. So if you said instead of good afternoon, I sent an email to somebody once where I was saying hello Courtney, comma, blah, blah, blah. And instead of saying hello Courtney, it said hell Courtney. And I was like, oh, that's a really bad typo. So my point is if you have a typo in there, well, guess what? You just sent it to 10 people. So we've got a solution for that, and I'll show you that. But anyway, but if you look, sent mail, bottom left corner, it says 10. If you look at the emails in my sent mail, there's the one to Joan, there's the one to Carly, Karen, Lee, John, Dudley. You save time, right? It was more efficient. It was probably less prone to errors. If you do it at 1 in the morning, you do it this way, and you do a really good job of it, it's going to go through and it's going to be flawless. If you're doing 10 separate emails, by the time you get to 9 or 10 and you're tired, maybe that's when you slip, right? Maybe that's when the human error comes in, and instead of saying Ms. Dean, you say Mr. Dean, kind of like the example I told you about before with the person whose name was Zane and I had accidentally said Kane. Please learn from my mistake on that. And, if you're applying for a job or something and you make a typo like that in an email or something, ideally that isn't going to be fatal, and you should still get the job if they like you and think that you're a great candidate. However, a lot of people don't like to see typos. They think that it kind of reflects poorly on a person's attention to detail. So that's where using a mail merge can help you kind of work with the data more and really give it a second look. And that will ideally help ensure that you don't have any typos like that. So it is a mail merge can be a really useful thing for students. And then in legal practice, extremely useful, extremely useful. So this is a spreadsheet that shows the names anonymized. This is a real file of mine, but anonymized names of 20 beneficiaries that this deceased person had set up in his will. His 3 children each got a quarter of his estate. And then 17, is that right? Yeah, 17 other people shared a quarter, which is 1/68. So again, instead of creating 20 documents for the 17, 1/68 and the 3 quarter shares, we're going to use a mail merge. We're going to just use 1 document, not 20 documents, right? So we put the same information in: name, address, city, province, postal code, country, care of, in case they're a minor, because it's going to be care of their mom or their dad, estate of Arnold Sutherland. There you go. I didn't show you the in-between, but there's the letter to Esther, who's the daughter. There's the letter to Donnie, he's the son. Here's the letter to Michael, he's the other son. And all of the other 17 documents to the grandsons and the nieces and the nephews and all those other beneficiaries. So much faster. This would take hours to open and close documents and make the letter for Donnie and make the letter for Esther. If you just do it in 1 document and you pull the data out of the spreadsheet, huge time savings. And in legal practice, you can also prepare the envelopes, and lawyers still use a lot of paper. I know that surprises a lot of people, but it's often the best way to go, because if you send somebody a letter and they sign it in ink and they send it back to you, that's what you want, right? This letter that I was showing you is essentially a letter that you send to the beneficiaries where you say, hey, I'm the lawyer, I'm administering the estate, I need you to sign this to give me consent or whatever, and send it back. You don't do anything until you get those consents back, because essentially, it's a CYA thing, cover your arse. You want those signed consents back and in your hands before you release funds or before you do anything, because that way you can say, hey, I got consent from every beneficiary, right? So making envelopes is helpful too, because you don't want to individually make 20 envelopes, and you don't want one of your teammates or an assistant to do it either, right? So again, time, money, mail merge, it's all connected. Time is money. I put it once in this presentation, I'll put it again. So this is the last section for Microsoft Word. I'm very excited. This is something I use every day. I love it. In all seriousness, I should point out that a person, of course, needs the faculty of hearing to make use of this. If a person is not able to hear, I'm sorry that this is not going to be helpful. But if a person has hearing, then this is an extremely valuable tool. So I've got a document here where there's a typo in it. I'm not going to tell you where the typo is. You can start scanning for it if you like, but we're going to use text-to-speech to read this document to us so that we can eliminate typos and improve our drafting. Okay, so there's a little command called speak. If you don't know how to set it up, I actually have a YouTube video that'll be coming up. You basically highlight the text and then you select speak. Okay, here we go. So this is what it sounds like using the text-to-speech.
Understand that your client was the store manager at the time of the incident. We confirm that we represent the store employees and are instructed to deliver the attached letter on their behalf. I look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, there is a typo in there, possibly more than one, but I only intended to be highlighting one particular typo. And my question to you is, did you hear it? Or do you know where the typo is? And was it helpful to hear it? For me, it's extremely helpful to hear something like this because for me, they just jump off the page. Whenever I use this application, and I use it every day because I send out a lot of emails and messages, and I always want them to be, perfect. I use this on everything, and typos just jump out, or redundant language just jumps out, or awkward phrasing just jumps out. So in this case, going back over to the document, it is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's the 9th word in the first sentence. We understand that your client was the store manager at the time of the incident. No, that doesn't say manager, it says manger. The problem with this word manger is it's a noun, just like manager is. Word did not catch this because Microsoft Word is software. It doesn't know that we're talking about a manager, not a manger. And this could go out like this. It's not a big deal, but the difference between a manager and a manger is this. A manger is like a trough that animals eat out of. And a manager is a person that, is responsible for business administration, runs something. So it's not a big deal, but it's important because this guy, people like this, why does it matter? But people notice these things. People notice typos and they draw conclusions and they may compare you to other people. So, when I was in undergrad, I had a couple TAs that straight up told me, and I got straight A's and A pluses at undergrad. And there was this one class where I didn't get an A plus, and I just wanted to know why. And it was about attendance, actually, which was absurd because I had went to every class. But the professor or the teaching assistant told me that essentially the way she usually tries to not give A pluses, because it always kind of messed with her curve, like she tried to not give A pluses, and she always would try to find like the smallest typo, and she would use that as the excuse to like downgrade somebody, like one typo, and like now you don't get an A plus, you get an A, or now you don't get an A, you get an A minus. So using text to speech, you can make sure to catch all of them. So that's what I would recommend that you do there. And then, the second thing there that you see where it says no interview for you, I have a friend who's a lawyer, and she told me a story about how she was once accepted for a job, or she received an interview, and then she ultimately got this job. But the person interviewing told her that they had essentially eliminated everybody else because she was the only person that had presented an application that didn't have a typo in it. So, people are definitely out there, and they're using your writing, and they're using, what little information they get from you as ways to kind of make judgments about you. About, are you a good writer? Do you have good attention to detail? And if you're only sending somebody a cover letter here and an email there, a person doesn't really have much to go on. So they may kind of judge something like a typo more harshly. It may not seem fair, and it may not be something that we all like, but that's just kind of the way it is. Anyway, I would recommend that you try to avoid typos as much as possible. If you need additional help in setting up text-to-speech, I made a YouTube video, and it'll tell you everything that you need to know, and some additional stuff that I didn't mention here about what's good about using text-to-speech software. And finally, as a bonus, I mentioned that I would talk about using another application called Picture Manager. So in a nutshell, Picture Manager is a piece of software that Microsoft discontinued many years ago, but in my view, the software that they replaced it with, which is Photos, is really just not as good. So every time I set up a new computer, I always reinstall Picture Manager and use that as my main software for looking at pictures. Obviously, if you need to edit photos or do anything like that, you're going to want to use something like Photoshop or something similar. But just for kind of like looking through pictures, cropping them, changing the rotation, changing colors, Picture Manager is extremely useful. I use it all the time, basically every day. So there is the link, there is the picture of my YouTube video. Just look at my YouTube channel, look for Picture Manager under the walkthroughs, and I've got a whole video that shows you how to set it up and what's great about it. All right, with that concludes this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and also use at least one of the lessons that you learned throughout this session, and then let me know how it went. My suggestion is use at least one of the things that's in here. You know, do a mail merge, check your text with text-to-speech software. You know, set up OneDrive if you're not using it. Share something on OneDrive. Set up a shared folder. You know, do something real from this presentation. And if you want to let me know how it went, that would be great. Because on my side, you know, I love to have the feedback. I love to know that people are actually receiving this information and going forward and doing something with it. Also, be sure to join me for part 2 of this video series, in which I'll be covering Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Outlook. And as I mentioned, I think that those are not necessarily as useful for law school as OneDrive and Word are. However, there's still tons of things that you can do with that software or those software applications at law school. You know, when I was in law school, I used Excel all the time. I used PowerPoint all the time. I used OneNote every day. And I didn't use Outlook as much, but I use Outlook a lot in legal practice. So I think it's really important for me to show you what's great about Outlook and why you should be using it now. And with that, thank you again. I'm Sean Dillman.